Am I the asshole for naming my son after my father instead of my father-in-law? No. Because what the fuck you name your child is your decision and your decision only. I, 26 female, recently had twins with my husband Harry, 30 male. I love my babies so much, but the labor was a nightmare. It was extremely traumatic for my husband and we agreed that we're definitely not having any more kids. I was laboring for 2 days, and throughout the process, we kept our families updated. When they were finally able to visit, my parents and my in-laws came to see us. Everyone was fussing over the babies, and my poor husband, who only had about 4 hours of sleep for the whole 2 days, was napping. My dad, however, sat by me first and just held my hand for a bit. When I told him to go get some cuddles in with the twins, he said, "I'm here to see my baby," meaning me. Oh, you're so sweet. It was honestly so sweet that I started tearing up. Girl, my tear ducts are starting to get a little juicy too. That's really fucking sweet. I didn't even realize how invisible I felt when my husband was sleeping, and my dad was there to make sure that I was also being taken care of. He took me down to the hospital cafe and we had breakfast together while the babies were with everyone else. I kept thinking about what my dad did for the next few days, and I decided I would give my newborn son my father's name as his middle name. My husband was totally on board with this. However, this is where the problem began. We knew my father-in-law would be pretty pissed at this. How you gonna be fucking mad that somebody don't want to name their child after you? Maybe you should look back and think about what the fuck you've done that would stop them from naming their fucking child after you. That's all on you. You need to think about your actions as to why you don't have a namesake. Get your thinking cap on, Pops. He always wanted a grandson named after him, but it's pretty clear now that he won't get one. He has 2 sons, my husband and his younger brother. My brother-in-law is gay and currently says he doesn't want to adopt kids in the future. My father-in-law is also one of those people who cares about bloodlines, so I don't think he'd want an adopted grandson named after him. Fucked up, I know. My husband has a complicated relationship with his father, so he wasn't comfortable naming our son after him. Like I fucking said, you need to think back about why they did not choose to name their son after you. What the fuck have you said or done that would make them hesitant to do something that they know you want so fucking bad? It's all on you, Grandpa. It's fucking all on you as to why your grandson isn't named after you. My husband has a complicated relationship with his father, so he wasn't comfortable naming our son after him. But we agreed to give them the same initials so they'd both be AHD. He accepted this, but when he found out we were switching the middle name from my father's, he lost his mind. He said that this was something he always wanted and we were throwing it in his face by giving the baby my father's name as his middle name. I tried to explain why, but he cut me off and said that it was absurd to expect someone to check on me when there were babies that had just been born. And this is exactly why she's deciding to name her son after her father, because people who think like you. There's no reason to check on the mother because there were babies that were just born. As if the mother isn't the person that just brought these babies into the fucking world. Out of anybody in the room, she needs to be checked on the most. Because if it wasn't for her, you guys wouldn't be having these babies to fuss over. Her daddy understood that. Her daddy understood that even though she has brought her own babies into the world, she is still and always going to be his baby. And as his baby, it is his job to check on her and make sure of that. And he reminded her that she was still important, so she wants to honor him by doing something beautiful. The fact that you missed all of that, fam, that's why you're not getting this. My father-in-law said that it was absurd to expect someone to check on me when there were babies that had just been born, and my father shouldn't be rewarded for ignoring his grandchildren. I tried to explain that it was more than just a moment, because my dad has been my best friend my whole life, but he didn't want to hear it. Mother-in-law is saying we're the assholes for doing this, because my dad doesn't care about any grandchildren being named after him, but my father-in-law has always wanted it. According to her, we're taking something away from him just because my dad chose to do something unusual, which to them was ignoring the babies until he was satisfied with me being okay. He did not ignore the kids. He got plenty of cuddles in when we got back from breakfast. My dad is honored by our choice, but he thinks we shouldn't have done it because of what it means to my father-in-law. Am I the asshole? No, I will never name my child after somebody who thinks that I should be ignored simply because babies were born. I had 2 days of traumatic labor. 2 days of traumatic labor, which they knew of because OP said that they kept both of their families updated throughout the entire time. 2 days, 48 hours of traumatic labor. And you think my dad checking on me while everyone else in the room pretended like I didn't exist was unusual? That's weird as fuck. I would never name my child after you. I would never fucking name my child after you. It's crazy because I have seen, and I think I read another story before about a young woman who had a baby and she truly felt like her in-laws and the family didn't care. She got up and walked outside and stood outside for an hour before people even realized she wasn't even in the fucking house. Like, women go through birth, the most traumatic and painful experience they will ever go through in their lives. And once the baby gets here, they no longer exist to people. And that's fucked up, because if it wasn't for women, these motherfucking babies wouldn't be here. They wouldn't fucking be here. Next time you go to the hospital and you're going to visit a new baby, make sure to check on mama too. Check on her too. Make sure that she does not feel invisible. Let her know that we're proud of you. We love you. You were strong. You did this. We are so fucking proud of you. Give mama some love and attention too. Am I the asshole for staying at my son's wedding after he referred to his grandmother as the most important woman in his life, even though my wife was his stepmom most of his life? My son got married a month ago, and ever since then, the tensions have been high with my wife and her parents. My wife and I married after the death of my first wife. Our son was 6 when she died, but our relationship had been over for a couple of years before she passed. We stayed legally married for a while, and we tried to keep up pretenses for the sake of our son. But we both met people we wanted to be with, and then my first wife died. I continued to see my wife, the woman that I had met and wanted to be with, but I didn't introduce her to my son for another year, and I saw her far less for several months while I focused on my son and helped him through the loss of his mother. My son was 7 when he met my wife, and I admit my wife and I married pretty quickly. He was a few weeks shy of 8 years old. He struggled with my wife being a part of our lives. He was still in therapy, but we also did group therapy together with a different therapist. He was respectful to her, but emotionally distant. He was not affectionate, and he didn't love her. Over time, she did take on more parental responsibility, but we didn't jump straight into that. I didn't marry her to pawn my son off on someone like most men do. I was always engaged in my son's life, and I always parented him. He always turned to his grandmother, his mom's mom. He would call her regularly and would turn to her if I wasn't around and he was upset about something. He would see her as often as he could, and eventually, per the advice of the therapist and after talking to my wife about how she was struggling doing all the parental things, but him emotionally being distant with her, I decided she should try to fill more of a friend/aunt kind of role and not the role of a parent. She wasn't okay with it at first, but then admitted it would wear on her if he never returned her love or seen her as a mom to him. You cannot emotionally blackmail a child into loving you. This man just lost his mother, and a year later his father remarried to somebody, and she is sad that he doesn't see her as a mother. This baby is still processing the fact that his mommy is gone. And you're over here fucking worried about how you feel. You're asked to fill an aunt or a friend role, which is exactly what he needs right now. He does not need another mother figure in his life. He needs a friend. He needs a fucking friend. You selfishly are upset about it and say that it's going to wear on you if he never loves you like a mother. Bitch, be ready to be worn down, because you can't force this child to love you. My son was clear in therapy that he didn't want her as his second mom. He wanted nobody as that. Fast forward to the wedding, and during the toast, my son thanked me and my wife and his grandmother. He mentioned his mom and how she was always his number one, but how after she died, his grandmother was the most important woman in his life until he met his wife, and how they both loved her. My wife became very upset about this. She told me she wanted to leave once the speeches were done. Bitch, not you being angry that somebody's fucking speech was not about you and then wanting to leave. You do know nothing about this event is about you, right? I truly hope bitch. Okay. My wife became very upset upon hearing this, and she told me she wanted to leave once the speeches were done. I told her I didn't want to leave my son's wedding. She asked how I could stay when he showed how much he doesn't really value her or love her. I don't understand why you're shocked. This child has been telling you since he was 8 years old that he doesn't value you like a parent. He does not love you like a parent. And he probably don't love you even as a friend, because I can tell that you literally forced yourself on him as a mother for his entire fucking life. He does not like you. He don't fucking like you. I knew at 8 years old, he did not want you to be a parental figure. You know how I know? Because he told me. When he said that he didn't want you as a second mom, he wanted nobody as that, he told me. And I'm pretty sure he fucking told you, because that's how I found out. Because he told you. Bitch, wake the fuck up. Wake up. She left and I stayed. She ended up at her parents' house. When I got home, she told me she felt abandoned. And her parents told me I was a bad husband and I should have put my son in his place, and told him only one living woman deserved to be declared the most important woman in his life, besides his wife, and that was my wife. They feel I should have left with her because the ceremony was over and it was just the reception. Am I the asshole? I love when these stories end this way. I truly love when a step-parent just does not respect the child and tries to force them to love them like their past parent, or like more than the parent that has passed on, and then they get upset that they don't get it. It makes me tingle with satisfaction, because that's what you get, bitch. That's what the fuck you get. You cannot force a child to love you for the way that you want them to if they fucking don't. No, I don't think you're the asshole for staying at your son's wedding, because this is your son's wedding. You had every right to fucking stay there. Your wife and her parents are absolutely fucking insane. They are insane if they think you need to put your son in his place because he does not respect nor value your wife as his mother, when he's literally been telling her that since y'all fucking met. Absolutely the hell not. You are not wrong for staying at your son's fucking wedding. It's clear. It's fucking clear how your wife and her parents truly don't love your son. They don't. They would only love him if he loved them in the way that they wanted him to. Because listen to how bad they're talking about. You should have left because the ceremony was over and it was just the reception. You should have put your son in his place and let him know that there's only room for... No, these people don't value your son, nor do they love him.